Alright, so a car came to visit us in the shop here. I don't normally have visit cars, but the owner had taken it to several shops and was having some issues with the lighting up here in the front. It's a nice looking car. It's a 2009 650i and it's the coupe. So it's kind of like my M, but it's the 650i version. So he's having some problems out of his headlights here. We'll get set up and we'll show what's going on, but it looks like I'm going to have to take the front off and take all of that away to get to these modules. So what I'll do, I'll take the front off just like I did on my 650i convertible, and so I won't show that. I'll show it in high speed or something, and then we'll get down to what the issues are. But if you're looking for how to take this front off to access these light assemblies, then you can look at that other video. I'll put a link up on this video so you can see how to take all this apart. So let's get set up here and see what's going on. Alright, so let's put the key in and see what's going on with the headlights on this car. So as we can see here, we got the H7s working. They're blue, which is probably an issue with some of the popo around here. They might not like those blue lights, but this one is the one that's giving the problem. This is the Xenon, and it's not lighting up. So it may be something has happened to this light assembly. We got to take that light assembly out. You can see on the other side, over on this side, the one that's blue is not working over here, but the Xenon is working. So we need to figure out what's wrong with that. And normally we wouldn't have to take it out to check that bulb. You can get it from the inside. But since we got to take all this off, we'll look at both of them anyway. And then down on the bottom, the fog lights, not sure if they work or not, but we can look at the fog lights as well once we get all this off and see what's going on. So let me turn the fog lights on and just see if they light up or not. So then there's the fog lights, and as you can see, they are blue as well. So might run into some issues with some having too much blue on this car. So the owner said he wants to change them all back to white, and then everything will be set up pretty much like it was before. So let's get set up and we'll take this whole front off here and see what we can do about getting some of these lights fixed. Alright, so we got the wheels off in preparation to take the front panel off to look at the lights, but I noticed when I pulled the wheel that this car's also got a leak of some sort. And you can see right here, this is all wet. It doesn't really smell, so it's either oil or it's power steering fluid or something. So let's head back over here to the front and start working to take the front of the car off.
You can see the riding on the pavement. Young kids, they're growing up in basements. Online, a whole new generation. I'ma make mine, so you better go take it. Always, they need a new replacement. Decentralized, can't contain it. We're changing lives, yeah, upgrading. Call it suicide of the older generation.
What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah.
And there we go. So as simple as that, just some screws on the sides. There's a couple right up here, and then the ones across the top, and two underneath those little covers that I took off, and a couple in the edges, and boom, we got the front off of it. So we got it sitting on some old chairs from the office. I don't have to disconnect anything because pushed out that far is plenty of room to get the light modules out, and now we can see what's going on. So we will get to changing some things out. We'll go ahead and change the fog lights out and get them done, and then we'll start working on these. Alright, so let's change out the fog lights real quick because they're super simple, and so I won't forget. And with the cover pulled forward, it's really easy to do, but you don't have to take the cover forward to get to these. You can actually, underneath the bottom, right there, is this little triangular piece of plastic. So all you have to do is take the 3 screws loose on the inner fender and then take the little blue ones loose right here, and you can pull that out. and take that out, and then you could reach up inside of here and get to that bulb. But with the cover pulled forward, it's just as easy to do them right here. So all you gotta do to change them out, and we got some new ones here. The owner wants to put some little LEDs in there, so all we do is turn it sideways and pops the bulb out, and then we're just going to disconnect the connector right here. Take the old bulb out. These are those blue ones that we saw at the beginning, so I'll set them up there in case he wants them. And then we just have to reconnect our little connector like that right there, and slip him back off and put him back in the hole. Simple as that. So we'll do that on the other side as well, and then we'll show us with our new light bulbs. And there we go. Now we're back to white, so we're looking good there. Got rid of the blue ones. The other side is working as well, so we're in good shape on fog lamps. So next we'll tackle taking off that light module right there and see what's going on with those Xenons. Alright, so let's pull this light module out. Super simple. There's only 4 bolts that hold it in there. This is actually, the tabs are broke on it, so we're going to have a look at that and see what we can do to get that in there. So there's 1 screw here and 1 screw normally there, but it's missing. So it didn't get put back in there, and then there's 1 over here on this side at the top and 1 down at the bottom that's also missing. And this is the only one you really got to worry about because it's the adjustment.
Keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built.
So out comes our light module. So now we can have a look at what's going on and see. I can tell right now somebody's been in it because it's got sealer on it. Looks like maybe it got busted or something. So we may have to pressure check this thing and make sure that it's not leaking. If it is leaking somewhere, then we may have to reseal this, put it back together. So there's our module. Now we can do some inspection on why the Xenon is not working. There's the ballast on the bottom, and inside the door there is the igniter and then the bulb. So let's take that off for a second and let's have a look, see what's broke on this little fella right here, because it's got its own driver or ballast that sits here to run the LEDs and all of that, and it looks like it's got some tabs broken. This one's not broken here, it's just missing its screw. This one's broken and that one's broken, so we're gonna have to figure out how to get that guy to stay up in there like he's supposed to. Alright, so after a little bit of creative metal bending here, we got 2 new tabs that'll hold this little guy on there, made out of stainless so they won't rust. So now we can install this guy and get him back in there and make sure it works. And there we go. Now we got our light back on, so we can have a look-see. Let me just turn it on and make sure it works. And there we go. So we got the light working, and it's all clipped in there now, so we're in good shape. So now we can move on to the Xenon lights and see what's up with them. Alright, so we got our light module out on the bench to try to figure out what's going on. We know this one works. It was showing blue. We got to change that bulb out. The Xenon is the one that's not working on the passenger side. And so looking inside the cover here, we'll look in just a minute. We can see the wires are quite broken up, and so we're going to have to do some work there. But it also looks like somebody's been into this one and took this cover off to repair something. So I don't know if that's sealed up or not. We'll be able to test it. I'll probably take and drill a tiny little hole in there and pressurize this, and then use some soapy bubbles to make sure it's sealed up, because I'm thinking it's got some moisture in it. I can see a little bit of clouding, and that may be what's causing the problems, is what it's killed, either the ballast or the bulb or the wiring's touching or something. So we don't know yet, but we're going to dig in there and see. So the owner got a new ballast just in case, and also the internal wiring, and I'm hoping that it's not the wiring that's internal, because I don't want to have to take this cover off again, because the second go around it's probably going to break, because it looks like it's been glued together pretty solid with some RTV, and that stuff's going to be tough to get off there. So hopefully we won't have to take that off. You wouldn't want to take it off normally anyway, unless it's just something detrimental inside of it that you have to fix. If our wiring is bad down inside, way down in there, what I'm going to do is actually use what's called liquid tape. You can get that at your local cheap store, and it's kind of like insulation that you can paint on there. So if there are some cracks in the wires way down there versus trying to disassemble this whole thing and ruining it, I'm going to paint over those cracks and get the insulation back. Any of the wires that we can remove and get to, we'll take those out. But we're probably going to be using this stuff just to get this one back, because it's kind of on its last legs anyway. It's already been taken apart. We'll see if we can't get it working, and maybe it'll be stable enough to keep running. And then later on in life, a few years down the road or something, if it gives out, then it can get replaced. But these are really expensive, so it's worth it to try to save one versus having to just rebuy one. You don't know what you're going to get anyway. So let's look inside of here. So we're already, this is the one that you can access inside the car real easy. And so all we do is pop the cover. If I can get it up there. There we go. So inside of here is the wiring that I saw earlier that's messed up. And as you can see, the insulation is shot. Now I can get to that one. I'm going to replace these two right here with a ceramic pigtail that you can buy for just a few dollars, and replace out that pigtail right there. So we're going to replace that one out because it's easy to get to. But down inside of there, as we look deeper, I'll see if I can get the camera in there, we can see some cracks and things in the other wire. And I'm going to leave this bulb connected, because what I want to do is I'll just leave this loose. That way nothing's touching. And what I want to do is go in here and first off figure out inside of this one, and you can access that. This is your Xenon bulb. You can access that through the inner fender, so you wouldn't have to take the whole module out. But I'll show you in just a second. This thing is a pain to get out, even on the bench, much less in the car. So we'll show how to take that out here in just a second. Alright, so before we go blaming everything and seeing it might just be the bulb, might be the igniter's bad that's keeping it from coming out. So we're going to take the bulb out and swap it out for one that the owner had, and put it back in the car for a second and just see if it's the bulb. Maybe it's just the bulb, but I can tell looking down in here, there's been a lot of moisture in here because things are a little rusty. So I'm really wondering whether or not we got some issues down there with the wiring. But here's how you get this bulb out. And like I say, it's no fun in the car, and it's not much fun on the bench here. But it's got two little metal clips, and this is like a D1 bulb. And so you take the clips and pop it loose, and you think, oh, okay, I can just pull that bulb out. Well, you're not going to be able to, because this connector down here in the bottom makes it impossible. So what you got to do is actually take these little guys and raise them up out of the way, get them on the outside of the door there, and so then you can grab the bulb. Now I'm not too concerned about this bulb because he's wanting to replace it anyway, so I'm not going to use gloves. I'll use gloves when I put the new one in. But to get it out, what you have to do is pull it forward and then actually rotate it to get that connector to clear down here. And so you pull it out and you give it a little rotation, move these little guys out of the way so you can rotate it, get that wiring harness up, and then you can pull the bulb out. So that's about the only way to get that thing out of there. And what we're going to do is put a new bulb in, and then we'll take it back to the car and see, maybe just the bulb is bad. So all you do is pop this one off. You just wiggle the connector. It comes off. The bulb looks okay, so I'm starting to think maybe it's not the bulb. It's not burned or anything, but just in case, we're going to give this a try because it's pretty quick. So let me go get some gloves, and we'll put this new bulb back in. Alright, so we got our gloves on, and here's our bulb right here that we're going to put in there and then put it back on the car just to see if maybe that other bulb was out. So let me zoom in here just a little bit, and you'll see how to put it in. You got to fiddle, but you got to be real careful with the bulb. And if you forgot to put gloves on and you actually touch the bulb and got oil on it, you can get some alcohol and wipe it off, and you'll be alright. You just got to make sure that bulb is clean. So let's zoom back down in here, and I'll show you how to get this bulb in. So it's kind of a finesse, a little bit of finesse to it. So first off, you want to get your connector connected. And so you put the connector back on the bulb. And now comes the fun part. Remember, we had to twist it to get it out of there. So you got to twist it to put it back in, but now everything's in the way. You got to get this inside, these things are in the way, and so you got to carefully kind of orient the bulb in there without being mean to the end of the bulb. Move these things out of the way and push a little bit and move a little bit until you can get that connector to drop in without being mean to the bulb. Keep moving those things out. Now once it rotates, then you can slide it back in there. It'll lock in place for you. You'll kind of feel it, kind of goes in place. Then just put your little tabs back in. Get those little guys to lock in without pinching your glove. And there. Once you get that one in, there you have it. So the bulb's in. Like I say, in the car it's even more aggravating because it's up in the inner fender. On the bench it's not too bad, but you got to be real careful. But the trick is you got to rotate it and kind of get it out of there, and then when you put it back in, do the very same thing. So let's go back over to the car and put it in and just see if maybe it was the bulb. If it's just the bulb, then all we got to do is clean the wires up, and then we'll be in good shape. All right, so with the car lit up, we can see we still got our driver's side working, but we don't have a Xenon over on the passenger side. The blue one's still working over here, although the wires are all janky. But that one is not lighting, so it must not have been the bulb. So now we're going to take the thing back off and go over there and start taking parts off. We'll take the ballast off, take some of the things off, and see if there's something wet inside of there that needs to be repaired, and then we'll try the other ballast. So we'll get set back up on the bench over here and start taking some things off this module. Alright, so we determined it wasn't the bulb, but we're going to leave that one in there because it's a new bulb, because we'll just use that one so I can take my gloves off. So now we need to start taking things off and checking some wiring, because this is the main connector that you plug in inside of the inner fender. And what we want to do is check and make sure the wires are all in good contact with here and we don't have anything cross contacting. So to do that, I got to take the ballast off, and I also have to take this little control unit off over here to make sure I don't have any wires that are feeding through something that might make me think that they're contacting when they actually aren't. So over on this side is a little control board, and this little guy controls the movement of the headlights. And so we gotta take him off. We're also going to be able to tell, because this is the bottom side, so if there's any kind of moisture that's been getting in there, on this side of everything is where it's going to be settling, and we're going to be able to look and see if there's been water in there. So this guy just pops off. Just have to wiggle him and he'll come loose from the connector like that. So keeping in mind, this is the bottom side of the light, so this would be the bottom side. So when I flip it over, now you can see, if we look close at the camera there, you can see all of that moisture that's been in the bottom of this. So I don't know that this board's working. The lights might not adjust anymore, but the biggest thing the owner is wanting is to get the headlights working, and then he can figure out if he needs to get another module later on, but he's got to get the lights working. So yeah, we've definitely seen some moisture in here, and looks like some of those may be bridged and corroded. But that shouldn't stop the Xenon bulb from working, because this is the light control that makes the movement of the light. So we do have some issues there. So then let's take off the ballast. So to get the ballast off, after you take the screws out, all you do is raise up on it, and I'll show you the connectors in a minute, but there's one connector that's the driver, and then it kind of spins around and you can see that other cable right there. And so there's one connector that connects right here. It just squeezes and pops off. This one you just have to wiggle, 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 and it'll come off the ballast. So that's all it is connecting up to the ballast right there. So we don't know if that's bad or not. I marked original on it so I don't get them confused, because they look very similar. So we got our wiring loose. This is the main wiring, and let me get the camera and we can see that even down inside of here our insulation is starting to crack up. So right there is where the ballast goes. You can see here's the ballast that I took off. And if we zoom down in there, you can see that these wires are damaged as well. Now these are beyond me being able to get them out of there. So that's where that liquid tape comes in. I'm gonna repaint those wires right there with that insulation stuff and make sure they're not touching, because it could be one of those is touching and it's grounding out the ballast and it's ruined it. And so also right here, if I can get it to focus in, you can see that this one right here has got some corrosion on it. So we're going to need to clean that off a little bit. That may be also what's causing some issues with the ballast, but they're on the bottom, keep in mind, when it's on the car. And so that's where the moisture is.